What's in my studio? Well, you can see some of the toys here behind me. Do you need all of this stuff to get started creating video? Absolutely not. I tell people all the time, if you've got a smartphone, you are well equipped to get started. And I encourage you to get started, even if that's all you have. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour here of what I've accrued over the years, why I have it, what its use really is, and how it helps me to create video for both my YouTube channel and for any training videos that I also produce. Coming up next. So this behind me here is my production station, or my post-production station, where I do a lot of my editing. And if I'm ever a guest on a podcast or anything like that, then this is where that happens for me. I've got my mic set up. I've got a Logitech C920 HD camera on the top of my screen there, as you can see. And I've got a couple of Edifier R1700BT speakers, which are not necessarily a pure studio monitor type of speaker, but they've got pretty good range, and I've been happy with having those to be able to hear the different sounds in the videos that I create. So that's that setup there. And in behind me on this side is where I have my green screen setup and my lighting. Now this setup allows me to get quite creative with any of the videos I create for YouTube or training videos and other things. It is not cheap to get into, I'll tell you that. I don't have the most expensive gear here by any stretch, but it does require an investment to get started. But for me, because I'm doing more and more of this all the time, it's been worth it to add more things to my collection, let's say, over a period of time. So I've got some softbox lights, as you can see, and that for me is really good lighting. A lot of people will just start out with a ring light or something small like that just to get going and provide a little bit better lighting for their camera or their phone, and that's great. But you will find that those things are limited over time as you want to get more creative with your videos. So I've got this tripod behind me with my Canon M50 camera set up on that. I use that quite a bit instead of my smartphone now, although I'm filming this on my smartphone, and you'll see that it's turning out really fairly good. That's why I encourage people to get started with their smartphones, because they've come a long way over the years, and the camera quality is quite impressive compared to how they used to be. I still use my smartphone all the time, just like I'm doing here for this video right now. This is my Canon M50 camera. It's a DSLR camera, digital SLR. It's mirrorless, so it's quite lightweight, and it's one of the most popular vlogging cameras there is around right now. It's a great camera. It's just got the kit lens on the front of it, although you can certainly upgrade that and get some really good quality images with some other lenses. But this one works just fine for what I do here in the studio. These softbox lights are great little lights for lighting up my area. I've got a couple just specifically for lighting my green screen, and I've got a couple that are meant for lighting the subject, usually me, of course, sitting here in front of the camera. Down below my softbox lights, I've got a couple of smaller LED lights. They're just battery operated, although they can be plugged in as well. And those are just used simply to help light my green screen. My green screen is an 8x12 screen, so it's quite large. It covers a fairly large space here. And it needs a lot of light in order to be able to effectively remove that color when we're done with the video and be able to add something else into that background. Up at the top of my green screen, I've got what we call a hair light or a backlight sometimes. It's just a small LED panel, and what that does is it actually works to reduce the reflection off of the green screen with all of these other bright lights. So I'm usually standing right around here when I'm doing my recording in front of the Canon M50 camera, and the green screen with all of this bright light can actually have some spillover or some reflection. So I'll get this green hue all around my outside edges that can be challenging to remove. What the backlight does is it shines on the back of my shoulders and the back of my head and just creates a little bit of separation between me and the screen, and it makes it that much easier, actually incredibly easier, to remove the green background in post-production. You can see too that I've got this green screen clamped. It's stretched right out at the edges and it's clamped so that no wrinkles appear in the screen anywhere. And that is on purpose as well. Wrinkles create shadows in our editing. And when those shadows are there, it's really challenging again to remove the background when we're editing. So it's important to be able to have, again, good lighting for the screen, just dedicated lighting for the screen, and get the wrinkles out by stretching the screen out and using those clamps. Now there are other options for green screen as well, like paper, for example, which is quite common, and it doesn't wrinkle as easily, but it's not quite as durable as a fabric backdrop. And what I've seen people do as well is just paint their wall. If it's all you're going to use it for in a studio space, you can actually get green paint, a matte paint that doesn't have that high gloss reflection to it, and just paint the wall that color and use that as your green screen. Now this little device here is something I get asked about a lot too. How do I roam around and shoot great video and not have it shaking all over the place like some video is when you're trying to do it in selfie mode with your phone? Well, this is called a gimbal or a stabilizer, and I use it quite often when I'm on the move, if I'm shooting a video outside or if I want to get some panoramic shots of things that are around me in my background or my foreground, like I've been doing here, showing you bits and pieces of my studio. It works really well because it's essentially a motorized selfie stick. It's got little motorized stabilizers built right into it. So no matter how I move, it works to keep the camera focused on the subject. Now I've got a few other little odds and ends that I use. I've got some microphones, of course. These are the Rode Wireless Go microphones, and it's my go-to for lapel mics, for wireless at least anyway. And I've got a wired lapel mic as well. This one is the PowerDewise lapel microphone. It's cheap. It's worth about $25, something like that. And it works very well. The pitfall is the long cord that has its limitations when you're moving around in your studio space. These foam pieces on the walls around my space, they're just meant to prevent some of the sound waves from bouncing around and causing echo when I'm recording. And they're quite effective at doing that, but they're not soundproofing. That's different. There are soundproofing tiles available, but they're much more expensive, and they're fantastic to have if you can afford them. Most people won't need that high-end soundproofing tile. These are actually quite good and quite affordable for most people, for most of their needs. And in fact, I'll put a link to a lot of this gear down below in the description. It's an affiliate link, so just be aware of that, but you can go check it out if you're curious. One last thing I'll mention is my teleprompter. This is the Padcaster Parrot teleprompter. It just mounts to the front of my lens on my Canon camera. It actually comes with a whole bunch of lens adapters, so you can just pick the one that fits your camera lens and use that to mount the prompter onto the front. And you know, people use teleprompters a fair bit in broadcast, and you don't see a ton of it on YouTube or in other training videos, but it's becoming more popular. And if you're into scripting all of your videos, it's a great way to have everything come up on screen so you don't have to constantly do take after take after take every time you make a mistake. You just read as it comes up on the prompter, and you get finished with your recording in a much more efficient manner. The downside is it can come off a little bit, well, scripted. And as you know, if you've ever watched any public speaking, it's just painful sometimes to see people reading from a PowerPoint presentation or from a piece of paper in front of them. Somehow it tends to remove the connection from the audience. So you can maintain that connection with a teleprompter. It just takes some practice and doing it the right way. But I tend not to use the teleprompter a whole lot, just in very specific situations, usually for longer training types of videos. So this is where the magic happens, the so-called magic of television, although for me it's the magic of my home studio. As I say, you don't need all of this gear. Start with your smartphone. But as time goes by and you get creating more video, you're going to want to add some of these other pieces to help you level up what you produce. All the best.